And I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the various lands where we gather and acknowledge the elders past, present and future, with our greatest respect to the elders, and also acknowledge the important roles of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples across Queensland and across Australia within the outdoor recreation community, and particularly acknowledge the care and that has been shown to the lands and waterways and the whole environment across our country for untold generations. And also recognise that this week with the 26th of January can be a difficult week for a lot of people across Australia. So I just wanted to note that, and we also acknowledge the support that's provided to Outdoors Queensland by the Queensland Government, and gratefully accept that support for our organisation, but also for the outdoor sector, the work that the Queensland Government does there. So welcome to another session of Coffee and Conversation. It's strange to think that January is just about over already. I actually find that hard to believe, but there's certainly a lot going on, and I'm looking forward to another big year. My name's Dom Courtney. I'm the Executive Officer of Outdoors Queensland. Mark Squires is my co-host. Thanks again for your hard work, Mark. And we welcome everyone joining us, including anyone from interstate. So it's not just about Queensland. So it's great to see we have others joining us, and it's these sessions are really like it says on the label, about conversation. So happy to have people joining us, and this is the second episode of this year. So we're looking forward to delivering more of these sessions as we go along, and just seeing where the year leads us, I suppose. I've got a little bit of an agenda as I normally do, and quite a few things have been going on, in relation to what's available right now. Some of these things are quite specific, such as the Brisbane Offroad cycling strategy. It's just for the Brisbane City Council area. Other areas are Australia-wide and beyond. Some are Queensland-wide. So we'll go through those, and more than happy to have people chime in on different topics as we go along. So please just say so if I'm zipping through too quickly, or if I'm off on a tangent, please let me know. We will use the chat as we go along. So please sing out if there's something you want to raise, please do. But also you can do that through the chat, or even we're only a fairly small group, so as we go along, just see how we go. So we'll get stuck into it. I just wanted to flag up front the fair play voucher system. This is a Queensland Government scheme which is about helping pay clubs to cover registration fees of young Queenslanders, particularly from low income families. So I know that the Scouts and the Cadets and Guides and quite a few other organisations, including clubs, are registered as providers, activity providers under that scheme. So if you are a registered activity provider, it's a good idea to encourage your members to register for that scheme. They usually go pretty quickly, and they've been open for a week. So it's a good idea for people to get in quickly. There's more information there on the website, but also there's an email address there that people can contact. So it's a good scheme. There's a referral system in relation to eligibility for people to get into that. So I just wanted to flag that is open right now. So encourage people to get in, and it applies to recreation just as much as it does to sport, even though a lot of the time people think of it as a sport program, but it is for recreation. It's all about getting more people more active. So really just wanted to flag that one up front. I just mentioned before the Brisbane Offroad cycling strategy. So Brisbane City Council released this in December. I mentioned this in our last session. It's the opportunities to provide feedback closes on the 28th of February, so about a month. So really encourage submissions on that. The big thing about it, I think, is really just if you're interested in mountain biking, particularly cyclocross, that side of activities that goes on in Brisbane, it's worth having a look at the submission and providing, having a look at the strategy and providing a submission or doing a survey. So, yeah, we will be making a submission from Outdoors Queensland. There's some really good points in the strategy, the guiding principles that they set out in it. I think the council's done a really good job of that. We'll probably provide a bit more detail or more feedback on the detail in the strategy. So it's worth a read. It's not a big weighty document. I think it's about 8 or 12 pages. So it's not one of these strategies that is a bedtime reading document, but it's one that you can sort of have a good look at and get into the detail of it and provide the council with some feedback that's practical, particularly coming from outdoor operators. So I think there's value in that as well. So please have a look at that if you're interested in that. And it is Brisbane centric. So for those beyond Brisbane may not be interested in it, but just wanted to flag that it's available there. One of the biggest local government authorities, certainly in terms of budget and that sort of thing, Brisbane Council. So it's certainly worth contributing to their process. And Mark's just added a couple of links in the chat to both of those, fair play and the strategy. Thanks, Mark. I just wanted to flag Inside the Outhouse is returning next Monday. I'm not sure if we've got anyone from the Outhouse crew here today. I didn't see anyone join us, either Pete or David, but or any of the others for that matter. But yeah, Inside the Outhouse are returning next week with their webinars. But there's also a whole lot of resources on their website. So have a look at that. It's certainly worth a look and worth joining those webinars. They've changed the starting time and their format a bit. They're just going to go fortnightly this year, so first and third Mondays of each month. I hope I've got that right. Otherwise, I'm sure Pete will let me know. And the start time is 6:13 p.m. Queensland time. So they like a funky, unusual time. So it's certainly there's some good conversations in those sessions as well if you're interested. So I just wanted to flag that. So and on their website, there's plenty of info. A couple of things about insurance. I just wanted to flag. I mentioned this insurance inquiry report that the Australian government released. I'm not sure what's going on with this, but it's certainly something all business, particularly small business, needs to keep an eye on in relation to what the federal government might do about the findings of this inquiry. There's a bit of work going on about how they can, as it says on the screen, rebalance the risks taken on by insurers and make small business insurance products more accessible. So it's obviously very relevant. The small business aspect of that, one question that has been asked is, well, does that also include organised like clubs and that side of things as far as non-profit or profit for purpose organisations? And there's a bit of conversation going on in the background there too, because obviously the insurance issues doesn't just apply to commercial businesses. There's difficulties with insurance at the moment, quite a bit. So that's certainly ongoing. And on that point, the survey that QTIC, the Queensland Tourism Industry Council, is running, that's still open. So it's a national survey, and they're seeking input. It says on the screen, they're highlighting challenges faced by all parties and explore potential solutions. So that survey is still open. So the link's there to that one too, and I think Mark's just shared that. So thanks, Mark. So there's that's another big one. And the other thing, just to mention, there was a news article yesterday on the ABC News website about a legal challenge to insurers who hadn't paid out on business interruption insurance regarding COVID-19, and that's to do with exclusions in policies that referred to a specific federal legislation, and that court challenge has been upheld. So the insurers had to pay out on a couple of claims. So they're now trying to work out what's going to happen with that. So it's an interesting article yesterday in the ABC website. So there's a bit of stuff going on in the insurance space that we probably need to keep an eye on as far as what that looks like for the future. Any queries? Sorry, I probably should, not just keep jabbering on. If there's any queries, please please sing out or pop it in the chat as we go along. I just wanted to flag also this Queensland Government Small Business Roadshow. So Di Farmer, who's the Minister for Small Business and other things, but small business is the relevant part of this one. She's doing some small business roadshows right across Queensland. And so I've got the dates there and locations for six of these roadshow events in the next week. So if anyone's able to go to those, I think it's probably worth, representing and speaking to another minister about understanding issues for small businesses operating in the outdoor sector. Just another chance to, I guess, advocate on behalf of your own business, but also, to make another senior decision maker understand some of the issues that people are facing. And you can see that what they're inviting there about their own strategies, but also economic recovery from COVID-19, and then ideas, insights and challenges. And I think it's probably valuable if people do have time to go along to these sessions. They're not everywhere, but they're certainly trying, I think, to cover a few places, particularly Gladstone and Rocky on the same day, and then Mackay and Townsville on the same day. It must be doing some good travelling in amongst there. So yeah, it's good to see, I guess, the Minister getting out and speaking to small business operators, and seeking that feedback. So just, if you do get a chance, I think it's probably worth having a look at those sessions and seeing if you can get there. And there's a link on the bottom there for to attend those events. They're certainly a good, just register for each event if you can. And the other one, this is a bit of a blast from the past. I spoke about this campaign or this grant program last year a lot. It's actually still open for regional Queensland businesses, so businesses outside of Southeast Queensland. I think I looked at the stats yesterday, it was 92% full. So there's still some money available under that scheme. So I just wanted to do a little reminder of that. I think it's $50 million allocated to regional Queensland. So 8% of that, whatever that is, about $4 million, if my maths is right, is still available for grants of between $2,000 and $10,000. So I think it's worth having a look at. So that's again for small and micro businesses. So it might be worth having a look at that again, just as a little reminder. It seems to have dropped off the radar a little bit, that one. So just wanted to bring it back on the radar if anyone is thinking about it and wasn't aware that it was still open. Well, the world of COVID. Does anyone want to fire away with any questions before we get stuck into where we're at right now, or any particular issues that you've come across in relation to any of what I've just said, but also in relation to managing the fallout in relation to COVID so far? I guess probably just to put it out there, as you're probably all aware, from 1 o'clock in the morning last Friday, the 22nd, restrictions were eased and Greater Brisbane was back in step with the rest of Queensland. So that's the current COVID Safe Future document that's on the website, the government website. I think the big thing, and we've mentioned this a lot, is those new normal points that run along the bottom of the document there. And probably, I think the big one there, which I think possibly does need to be said a little bit more, is about the stay at home when sick and get tested. It seems like, you know, our testing numbers seem to go up and down a bit, and it's probably something that needs a little reminder. Don't want people to get slack and think, oh, well, you've got to, you know, Queensland Health's got everything under control. We probably still need to consider that aspect of it, the get tested and stay home. So, yeah, so the other ones there, you know, we're actually in a pretty good position at the moment, I think, as far as the travel restrictions, with even the travel restrictions to New South Wales ending as of, I think, Monday. So it's another good step in the right direction. Hopefully it'll stay that way. Yeah, and, you know, obviously at the bottom there, it's got COVID safe plan or checklist in place, which is another good part of what they're saying is the new normal. So I think that's a flag that the stuff that we have with the industry plans and your operational plans that align with that are, you know, not just a temporary measure. It looks like it's part of what they're calling the new normal. Just a couple of things too. This time last year, I think on the 29th of January last year, that was when the public health emergency was actually declared in relation to COVID-19. And strangely enough, the day before that, on the 28th of January last year, we actually hosted an Australia-wide, one of these newfangled webinars that we were doing back then. We hosted that on the 28th of January last year regarding bushfire recovery. So we were very focused on that last year. And I actually was looking at my notes for that event from a year ago. And the three things that we said were the aim from the peak organisations who participated in that was the three key things from, you know, looking at that was to restore public confidence in outdoor activities, rebuild industry capacity that's been affected, and the third one was increase business activity, improve business sustainability. So it's quite interesting that we could just about run, you know, exactly those three things up the, you know, as the three key things that we're still needing to do 12 months along in relation to COVID. But there's still the same drivers, whether it's from the bushfire recovery, but also in relation to other aspects like climate change and other things that, you know, those things, the public confidence, the industry capacity, and also increasing business activity, they're pretty, I guess, constant drivers of things that we want to be part of. So yeah, thank you, I guess, to all those who've been working on all of those aspects as we go along. Good old industry plans, as we just mentioned. There hasn't been any changes in the last little while to the plans. So just wanted to flag where we're at, still at version 17 of both plans. For anyone, you know, I've sort of broken down the changes since version 16. Again, about encouraging masks when it's not possible to physically distance, and that's still in effect under the outdoor rec activity providers. And the outdoor education providers one, we've actually requested some changes to that plan. And Queensland Health's come back to us since the last session we had, and they've requested a little bit more information on our requests, and we're now working on that with sport and recreation staff. So it's just about how it might work to make the changes that we requested and what impacts they're going to have. So we're sort of in the middle of working on that. We'll certainly advise as soon as we know more about that one. You know, we'll keep you informed. So I'm hoping in the next few weeks we'll have that sorted out. So there's just a bit of work going on in the background on those things, which it does take longer than, but it takes a little bit of time. So I think I'll just keep you informed as we go along with those ones. But I think the changes we've asked for, they certainly haven't just thrown them out and said, no, we're not doing that. They've listened to it and they've asked a few questions. So I just need to provide some more information and work with Sport and Rec on those ones. So, yeah.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah, Andrew. Yep.
I mean, obviously, like a lot of us sort of had some pretty big week already this week, and then from next week it's really on in earnest, and particularly those changeover days are very difficult. Like term one's, I think for most of us, quite a step up from term 3 or 4. So I know that they're doing all they can, but if we can kind of impress on Queensland Health that we're really, like the hospitality industry, really quiet in February, but for us, this is now peak time. So the sooner we can get some of those changes through, the better for us, because it's pretty difficult at the moment.
Yeah. And I've made that point to them about when we made the request, which was before Christmas, one of the things I actually said was we actually need this, to be in place for term 1 this year. And obviously term 1 this year is now. So I guess I was a little bit disappointed when we got the request for more information, but at the same time, they didn't just say no. So I'm sort of at that point of saying, right, I will work within it, but yeah, it certainly will emphasise how, the need for these changes, not just a nice to have, particularly about servicing multiple client groups, is a key part of it, and what we can do with that space under the plan. So, and still showing that all of the people who are operating under that plan, all the organisations are taking the appropriate protocols to be as COVID safe as possible, and that's what they want to see. So that's the sort of, I guess the work we need to do to show. So yeah, certainly take that on board. Thanks, Andrew. Any other queries about particularly the outdoor ed plan? I know I'll flick past the outdoor recreation plan. You can ask questions about that one too. This one seems to get a little bit more focus from time to time, but we certainly haven't been neglecting the outdoor rec plan. That's been updated as we've gone along as well. So the electronic collection of contact tracing, we talked a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago. So it is good practice to record details electronically, but you can go with non-electronic collection. The other businesses that are in that specific schedule, Schedule 1A of the Public Health Direction, they need to go with the electronic contact tracing. But yeah, for other businesses that aren't in that, which includes most outdoor activities, but anyone, if you are in, obviously the retail, food service, that side of things, as part of your business, then you should be well aware that you need to record those details electronically. So it's a bit of work that I think probably just the fact that that directive was released just before Christmas, that caught some people on the hop, I think, a little bit. I don't know of any of our organisations that had any dramas with it as far as not being able to comply, but certainly I think the best efforts have been made to either comply with it, even if we don't have to, or to go to good practice, which is great to see. So yeah, looking, and if anyone has any dramas with some of that stuff, please, happy to hear about it and to know about it, and if we can advocate on some of that stuff, that's part of what we do. So I'm more than happy to contact me separately about that one. I just wanted to say too, it's not so much on the contact tracing side of things, but there's I think Danny mentioned it before about cancellations and that sort of things. And I joined the Outdoors New South Wales and ACT session earlier today, and there was a bit of discussion about groups cancelling, particularly like one of the people on the call was it's actually in the tourism world, I guess, but they had a lot of wedding bookings and they've had a lot of them cancelled at their site. And there seems to be a bit of, I guess, that uncertainty level and people not being willing to accept the risk involved in a forward booking, particularly I think with some events. And I think that's going to have a flow-on effect for a lot of outdoor organisations where there's always been quite long lead times for bookings, whether it's an event or camps or other different types of activities. Those things, I think there's going to be a real concern, I think, out there as far as making any plans ahead, particularly when conditions have changed so quickly. So I think that's possibly something that needs to be considered. I'm not sure what the answer is to it, but I just wanted to flag that it certainly seems to be coming up more and more, where people are at the moment just not keen to book ahead on things because they're concerned that it may not go ahead. So I noticed that Scouts Australia have cancelled their Jamboree for 2022, just basically because of they found that the uncertainty involved in a massive event like that. I think thousands of people coming together in Victoria next year. They've made a call this year before they had to go ahead with all the planning and incur all the costs that are involved in that and paying deposits and that sort of thing, that they wouldn't hold a national Jamboree next year, which is a big decision to make. And I'm certainly not at all critical of it, but just showing that that's the sort of level of uncertainty that's going to affect a lot of activities and events at the moment. And I'm sure there would have been a whole lot of discussion going on into how they can do that, but also what's the actual decision, process that needs to be considered. So some of these things I think that we need to start thinking about, and probably one of the things that need to have a think about is, are there ways of doing some of these activities without the long lead time that can actually mean people are more likely to book in if they know they can do something, whether it's this weekend or in a week's time or that sort of thing. But it's a hard thing when we're used to having quite long lead times. And for some activities, you genuinely need a long lead time. I know a lot of, particularly school camps, bookings can be made, 12 months ahead. And that's a really, to give your clients the confidence that they'll be able to come to the camp in 12 months' time right now, that's a really difficult prospect. So I don't know if anyone has any comments on that as far as that side of things. I'd be happy to speak about that or hear about it. No? So I guess the other one I've got here just about the public health units, and also if you have queries, particularly about the industry plans, you can contact Outdoors Queensland, but also can contact Sport and Rec. They've been pretty good and quite responsive in relation to any of those queries. So I've just got the email address there. I mentioned the events, and there's a whole lot of stuff going on in relation to the COVID safe events and the framework that they've got, which was developed by Tourism Events Queensland and QTIC, Queensland Tourism Industry Council. So that the work that's going on in that is also potentially there's an interaction between that and the industry plan, so the outdoor recreation industry plan, and also the outdoor education plan. So we're sort of trying to clarify that as well right now, and make sure there's not any conflicts, I suppose, and unintended consequences in relation to what it says in the COVID safe event framework and what it says in the industry plan. So that's another piece of work that's going on in the background, I guess, and trying to clarify how they work together in a I guess a coherent way. That's probably the interesting piece of this. And at the same time, I think I mentioned it last fortnight, there's a bit of work going on in relation to the industry plans themselves and how they're going to maybe be overhauled, and hopefully simplified, but without removing the level of detail that certainly has worked as far as the protocols and that side of things that we need some guidance on, but to look at it so that we have a bit more clarity in relation to interactions between plans and that sort of things is sort of what I'm hoping for in relation to that. So yeah, I guess does anyone have any comments or questions in relation to those things? I'm getting a whole lot of crickets.
You want me just that we had a cancellation because they came across wording to the effect that, we just considered it as a straightforward youth camp, but they found wording to the effect that any multi-day event involving accommodation required a specific COVID safe event plan and public health unit approval. So, I mean, given the weight of information that's available online and that sort of thing, you can make a case for either point, I think, and be watertight. There's definitely conflicting, but probably the problematic thing is the public health unit decision tree suggests that same wording, any multi-day event involving accommodation, regardless of numbers, requires a COVID safe event plan. So,
yeah, and I think this is, like I say, I'm sure that that's not the intention, and I'm sure that what they're intending out of this COVID safe event framework is to cover off on the events where accommodation is a secondary part of it, like a music festival or a sporting event where there's might be camping going on. But, you know, I think that the big one that, you know, for as far as that side of things, that we need to be, and I certainly have been working, and Andrew sent me some emails about that, and I've sent them off to Sport and Rec and said, well, hang on, this seems to be, you know, not what the intention is, and how can we actually clarify this, whether it's just in the frequently asked questions section, which is actually quite good in relation to the event stuff, but it seems to have been delivered separately to some of these concerns, and it's very much about, I think it's really about tourism events, which is what that COVID safe event framework was written for. So I think we just need to try to make sure that it's not tripping up other parts of the environment that we all operate in. So we just need to make sure that it's, you know, we can get it all on the same page, and it's one of those ones that I think it requires a little bit of nuance and understanding of different operating environments, so that it's not not in conflict. But yeah, there's a bit of work on that's going on.
My latest thinking of it is that the definition of an event in the COVID events framework is a public or social event. And perhaps it's that we're a private facility providing things to private groups. So it's not a public event. That's what I'm thinking now.
Right. Yeah. And
I've emailed it to you. Have a look.
Okay. No worries. Thanks, mate. I mean, the other one that I think, you know, it specifically talks about what this is probably, I think, what does that event checklist cover and not cover, or the event framework cover and not cover. So it's certainly worth having a look at. But then I would say that, you know, something like, you know, if you had, I think Claire Burke's on the call, if you had a endurance horse ride where people are going to camp out overnight and then, you know, ride on the second day over a weekend or something, you know, does that require public health approval 10 days in advance? And it sounds like under the framework, then yes, it will, even if it's literally for 20 people, which certainly wasn't what we were told early on. So that's the multi-day event with on-site accommodation, including camping. So they're saying that's the scary bit. So I just think we need to clarify that one as well. So, you know, that it's not to say public health units will not grant approval, but you've got to make sure you get it. That's part of the requirements. So I think it could be another factor that could actually discourage event organisers, because at the moment there's so much uncertainty. But the other side of that, I guess, is if you've got public health unit approval for an event, that's another way of saying to your potential attendees, this event's approved. It's going ahead under the current approval. So maybe it's also, maybe looking at it the other way, that maybe it's a good step to get that approval for events that actually fall within the COVID safe event framework. So yeah. Does anyone else have any questions or comments on that one? Just just checking the chat there, but yeah, so I guess that's a big piece of work that's still going on, and I'm hoping that there's more events coming up. But the scary bit at the moment seems to be the people, you know, out there. A lot of people are unwilling to book well ahead, and obviously to make events work, you generally, particularly in the past, we've always had, you know, needing events booked in advance. And just speaking about events, I joined the Outdoors New South Wales and ACT session earlier, and during that, Laurie from Outdoors New South Wales and ACT, she confirmed that NOAC, the National Outdoor Education Conference, is going ahead at the end of the year. So it's end of September, early October in the Blue Mountains. So they've got it confirmed that they're going to go ahead. They'll be putting out a draft program, I think, before the end of February, and then confirming the program by June. So that's they've got that all booked in and approved to go ahead. So I think they'll be opening up bookings in February, but anyone who's already booked in for it last year, for the event last year, they'll be rolling those bookings over as well, if that's what you chose. So, and they're looking at getting a fair bit more, I guess, some engagement in relation to the program and that sort of thing. So Laurie was quite happy to announce that they're going ahead with NOAC, which is good to see. Strangely enough, I was am one of the speakers. I think I still am. But my proposal I put in to speak about was about what's the role of a peak industry body in times of crisis. And when I was writing it, it was December 2019, and I was talking about particularly the bushfire side of things, but also significant incidents, crisis management side of things. So we've seen, I think, the role of peak bodies in the last 12 months, but yeah, it's certainly one of the things that I'm not sure whether there's any point of a discussion about that now, but I need to talk to Laurie and their committee about whether they want to do something with that workshop or not. So it's an interesting process now about what that looks like, but I'd be hoping that I can get to the National Outdoor Education Conference. And Laurie did mention today that it's intended to be more than just outdoor education. They're trying to broaden it a little bit and include other outdoor operators in that conference. So hopefully we can actually attend a face-to-face conference in the Blue Mountains in September, October. Again, that's up in the air a bit. Just checking the chat there. Andrew's just put one about schools don't require an event plan or public health approval for school camps because they're under the industry plans. Yeah, I should have said that. They're talking about non-school camps was where that issue came up for QCCC, but I don't know if it's come up for other people in relation to that same situation. I think Andrew had a particular client who was obviously very diligent in going through trying to make sense of it for themselves and make sure they were covering off on things, and found that a bit of conflicting advice in the event framework Q&A stuff. So thanks for clarifying that, Andrew. We have had a bit of a discussion about what you guys want out of these sessions, and I just want to open this up. We did this last fortnight too. What can we do? Do we need to do things differently? And what would you like to see from these sessions this year? Any comments? Need your feedback. Anyone? Oh, what silence. This is amazing.
For the moment, fortnightly is good, just with the uncertainty about the industry plans. It's good to get that fortnightly update.
Yep. Thanks, mate. anything like about the format? Like I've sort of tried to stick with, you know, a few opportunities, that sort of thing at the start of the session before we get stuck into the wonderful world of COVID and COVID safe plans and the events. But are there other things? Would you like to see, you know, guest speakers talking about completely stuff other than COVID that is relevant to outdoors? Or I guess that's sort of the things I'd like to know, if that's something you guys would like to see. I guess I'm asking the people who keep turning up, so maybe you're happy with the format. But yeah, sorry.
Hey Dom, Peter Schilling.
Hey Peter.
Really comfortable with the format, really comfortable with the fortnightly update, unless of course COVID blows up deluxe at some point, then, you know, urgency will, and that timing might not work. But I can tell you that, you know, the key reason I'm on here every fortnight is to check that we haven't missed something as far as COVID compliance goes, and that we're doing the right thing by our customers, our employers, our staff, and also the industry. So that's why I come along, and you're doing a great job of that for us. So thanks.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I guess it's an interesting thing for me to think about these as a check-in for you guys to say, yep, I'm still up to date. Oh, okay, sigh of relief. Let's get back into it. And also, I guess the other part of it for me is I do appreciate that feedback of, yeah, it's serving its purpose and therefore it's of value to, because I you know, the last thing I want to do is put these on and have people think they need to turn up just because we're delivering them. You know, obviously it needs to be of value to people who are attending. Otherwise, you know, we can get on with other things. But I'm certainly keen to keep on doing these sessions while they're of value. And if we do need to go to weekly, if things did blow up, as you said, then yeah, that's what we'll do. But you know, we might, as I said on the screen there, we might even go to monthly if things settle down a bit more. And then it might become, you know, not necessarily discussions about the world of COVID. It could be about other topics that are of relevance to the outdoor sector. So
yeah, indeed, that'd be great, I reckon.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we might just keep it, I guess, as we go along. Just keep adjusting as we go. But if anyone, you know, I'm happy. Let me know what's going on, you know, in your world, and if you know, if someone wants to have a chat about, you know, I don't. These things don't need to be focused on COVID. Obviously, for the last 12 months, that's what we found ourselves. I almost said the word obsessed then, but that's what we found ourselves focused on, for good reason, because it has been overwhelming and it's been so difficult to get your head around a lot of this stuff. And I certainly appreciate the support that I've had, both internally from the Outdoors Queensland team and the board and a lot of members, but also from across Australia, from a lot of the other peak bodies, and from Sport and Rec. They've been, you know, it's been really interesting developing a different type of working relationship with some government operators as well through this time, when people are just saying, what can we do to help, which is terrific. So yeah, I think it's been really good. But yeah, does anyone else have any comments about, you know, these sessions or different things you might like to see? I'm more than happy to keep, you know, keep on plugging along with them, but I also want to make sure they're meeting the needs, I suppose, and worthwhile.
Oh, Dom, I was just going to say I agree with what's been said so far by Peter and Andrew, and thank you. I was going to say, obviously, at the moment, fortnightly, I believe, is working, but don't feel with the pressure that, you know, there has to be a lot of inclusion. If it's as simple as, you know, here's a quick update and anyone else got anything to share, well, that'll be fine. The other thing that it does help me with is a little bit of peer learning. So I don't know how we make that any more official, whether someone's willing to, you know, share on a topic, or we simply do what we do now is, you know, share what's going on in our world and see if it helps somebody else. Yeah.
Yep. No, that's a good point, Danny. And maybe that is it. Like, I'm more than happy to, if someone wants to raise different topics. I did see Andrew's just popped in the comments while you were speaking in the chat that about interested in compliance as a topic, you know, with people offering day camp style activities to kids and wondering regulation from child safety and OH&S perspectives. And this is one of the compliance it's another way, I guess, of regulation, but it's a topic that I think is one of the issues for our whole sector, where we are basically not strongly regulated. Oh, sorry. There's not a lot of regulation. So there's so part of that is also where do we go with in relation to, you know, different people operating, you know, in the same space, and how do we either educate people who are doing that, how do we draw them into the fold of operating with good practice, but also understanding what's going on there. You know, we are, sometimes it's I guess it's either a blessing or a curse, not being in a heavily regulated workspace, and that's one of those things where it certainly requires good management all the time. And Andrew just put one incident at a cowboy operation will have consequences for all of us. Not that there's anything wrong with Cowboys, they're one of the best teams in the NRL, mate. But yeah, I understand your suggestion there, and it's completely true. That's a great concern if people aren't following, you know, the right guidelines. I guess that's partly what the adventure activity standards were intended to be about. But we also, I mentioned our webinar that we did on the bushfire recovery in January last year. In November in 2019, the first webinar that Mark and I did was actually about the Australian Adventure Activity Standards. That was, you know, we were all excited about this webinar technology back then and getting it happening. And yeah, that was all about implementation of the Adventure Activity Standards. And I think that's a way that we can hopefully make a difference in relation to some of those things with what does good practice look like for all the different outdoor activities. And that's I guess a way of separating the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, and making sure that, you know, we can have a robust discussion and say, look, if there is a serious incident and an operator wasn't following the adventure activity standards that have been accepted right across the country, that's actually a way of differentiating, you know, what is good practice and what isn't. So I think there's a place for that as well. But yeah, that's certainly a good topic that we probably, implementation of the AAS is probably another one that I feel might have got a bit sidelined as a result of COVID, because it was only finalised in the end of 2019, and then 2020 became focused on so much other stuff. So I think it's probably another piece of work that needs to happen. The other thing that there has been talk about is updating the adventure activity standards nationally to include something about the pandemic, or future pandemics. So that's also a piece of work that's on the go as well in the background, that the Outdoor Council of Australia has been looking at. And I'm the president of the Outdoor Council of Australia, so it's certainly something that we're taking seriously as far as what we need to do to actually update those documents without, you know, redoing the whole project. It'd just be about an update. So that's a bit of an amendment that we're looking at. Does anyone else have any comments on that one or on other topics? Cool. Well, I think we've pretty much covered all of that stuff. I'm happy to give everyone an early mark, but if anyone has any other topics, obviously you know where we are. If you want to reach out to Mark or myself or any of the other staff, please do, either a phone call or through an email. But yeah, please, yeah, just let us know if there's any other things you'd like to see, or even zip me through an email if there's other things you'd like from these sessions. But yeah, we'll keep going with the fortnightly process, and look forward to seeing you more as we go along. So I should remind, one last reminder before I almost let you go. The Outdoors Queensland AGM's on the 17th of March as well. So, and we're right now planning on doing that face-to-face. We may look at a electronic version of it as well, as far as you know, making it available. We'll just see how that's going to work. So that's that's a bit of work that another one that we're working on at the same time. So there'll be more information about that coming out too. So, and we've got another one of our e-newsletters coming out next week. So stay tuned for more information there. Thanks to Mark for putting that together. He's been working his fingers to the bone, working on the e-newsletter at the moment. So yeah, look at that, nothing but bone. So thanks, Mark, and thanks to all of you for joining us today. And we'll see you again in about a fortnight. I just saw Graham's just added Adventure Training Australia is looking at running another remote area first aid. If anyone needs this, please contact Graham. So thank you, Graham. Yeah, great to see that. So remote area first aid, if you need that, yeah, give Graham a call and see what you can line up. Any other public notices that we need to broadcast before we finish up? No? All right. Well, I hope you all have a great fortnight ahead, and yeah, look forward to speaking to you soon.